So in today's video, I'm going to discuss how to write a cover letter for a typical faculty position. And in some ways, you can modify this particular template for postdoctoral positions. And I'm going to primarily focus on the cover letter for a starting position, so assistant professor level. But again, you can modify this for positions at associate professor or full professor level. So now let's start with this particular problem. So I would say the objective of the cover letter is to do a feature extraction from your CV, research statement and teaching statement into a 1-page or a 2-page size. And essentially the cover letter becomes very important because faculty are very busy. Typically those in the search committee are flooded by a huge amount of CVs and research statements and teaching statements which they have to peruse, and therefore they will often look at a cover letter and make a binary decision as to whether they should proceed further. Now the first thing you should do in a cover letter is you should date it, and the date should be in a format such as 1 May 2022. So remembering that in different countries they follow different nomenclatures for dating, you should make it very clear that your month is separated from your day. So for example, if you were to use 1/5/2022 or 5/1/2022, they may mean the same thing in the US and European and other systems. So keep in mind that some countries use the day, month, year format, and some countries use the month, day, and year format. So once you have fixed this date aspect, next you turn to who to address the letter to, and this letter should typically be addressed to the chair, selection committee, department, university. Now here you don't need to write chairman, chairwoman, chairperson, just write the word chair. And in some cases, if you do know the person who is the chair, you may write his or her name. But be careful that sometimes the chair change during the process and this may lead to some deleterious consequences. So I actually believe in the philosophy of writing the letter to the chair, because this is not a person, this is a position to whom you are writing this particular letter. Now next you need to write a statement such as "Dear Professor," and I think the most bland but useful statement is "Dear Professor," because sometimes people write "Dear Colleague," but you may not be a colleague of these people yet and they may be peeved at that particular notion. Sometimes people become very friendly and write "Dear Charles" or "Dear Richard" or "Dear John." Now you are not on friendly terms with this person, so do not write like that. So I would say the best way is to write "Dear Professor," and if you know the name of the person, you can probably write "Dear Professor Smith" or "Prof Smith." So now we begin the actual letter. So the first thing is that in the first paragraph you need to mention the job description, where you saw it, and what is the position you are applying for. So these are the three things you should make clear in your first paragraph. So once you have gotten through this particular point, you can add a sentence on what is your particular expertise which is useful for this job. So you may have done a PhD in the field for which they are soliciting PhDs, and your research topic may be in the discipline which they have shortlisted in their particular ad which they have put out. Now very often people see these ads in some online site, so you can mention the particular online site where you saw this ad, or in some professional magazine or something like that. So once you have done this particular fact that you are applying for a given position and there are certain credentials required and you meet these credentials, then you move to the next paragraph. Now in the next paragraph you give your outline in terms of your degrees. So here I would say that you list your PhD, master's and bachelor's degree, the field of the degree and the institution from which you have obtained these degrees. Now here I typically would not recommend that you write your CGPA and all these details. These are probably not needed, and if so, they can be presented in the CV. Now if your PhD topic is very relevant to the job description, then you could write your PhD topic here. If however your PhD topic is somewhat tangential to the job description, you don't want to write this topic here because then people may not read beyond this point. Now your degree should typically have a link with the job description. So in many cases the job description mentions a set of majors from whom these applications are being solicited. So it may be mechanical or chemical or computer science or one of these fields, or it may be a humanities field or a social science field. So you want to ensure that you apply for positions where you have the requisite degree, or you are in a very close field, or you have done a prior degree in that particular field. Now once you have given out your background in terms of education in the second paragraph, you come to the third paragraph. And the third paragraph you essentially discuss your research expertise. So now here it is important to say that you have demonstrated expertise in certain areas and make a point to communicate that these fields or expertise fields where you have expertise are directly linked to the job description. So essentially if the job is soliciting somebody in smart structures, then here you can mention that you have worked in a couple of aspects of smart structures, maybe piezoceramic materials, maybe shape memory materials and so on. Maybe you have worked on control aspects of the vibration problem. You have worked on devising robust controllers. You have worked on uncertainty quantification of robust controllers and so on. You can also mention if your research was theoretical, if your research was computational or experimental, and what are the fundamental important discoveries which you have made during this research. So this paragraph is the main segment of your cover letter, and in a reasonably short paragraph you should communicate the basic gist of your PhD and further research accomplishments if you have done a postdoc and so on. Now here one of the important things to keep in mind is that you are talking of demonstrated expertise, which means that your expertise has to be demonstrated by your thesis title, by journal publications, by conference publications, by book chapters, and in some fields it may even be a book. Now many people can casually claim expertise on different things. I could claim that I am an expert in Russian literature because I have read several novels in translation. But what is meant by demonstrated expertise is that you have actually published papers in that area and you have obtained a PhD degree in that particular area. So casual self-study is not demonstrated expertise. Now once you have finished this paragraph on research, then you come to a new paragraph, and this paragraph is about teaching. So here you discuss your teaching plans with respect to the job for which you have applied. Now if you are a neophyte researcher or PhD, you may not have much experience in the job, so you have to be somewhat creative here. One thing you can do is to look at possible scenarios where you have helped in teaching some courses. So maybe you have been a TA in a certain course, or you have been a grader, and you can bring that out. But don't make it seem like you are a graduate student. Just mention these, that you have expertise in these areas, and point out some courses in the university which you can teach, and these should be courses which you have studied in your graduate school or in your UG curriculum, and therefore you are very familiar with these particular courses. You can mention that you have some expertise in these courses. Now this part becomes easier for more senior faculty because they may have experience in teaching courses, and so if you are applying for a higher grade, you could mention that you have taught various courses and so on. Now remember, in both the research paragraph and teaching paragraph, you would have a detailed research statement and teaching statement. So the objective of these paragraphs is to make these people feel good about you as a candidate, so that they want to go further and shortlist your case and read those particular documents. So you don't want to give too much detail here, and I would say for most junior faculty it is best to have a one-page cover letter. And if you are a senior faculty, you may go for a two-page cover letter, in which case more detail could probably be given in this research and teaching section. For most young PhDs, teaching section should be very minor, and the best way is to simply mention a variety of courses with the course numbers of the curriculum which you can teach in that particular university. Now make sure you are actually able to teach those courses, because they may actually ask you to teach a sample class to a group of people. So if you say you are able to teach structural dynamics, make sure that you can teach a particular class on structural dynamics, because this has happened to some people where they were asked by the university to suddenly come, and then a professor said, okay, I'm going to teach beam theory today, why don't you teach it? And this person was caught off guard. So make sure this course is not something which you are very unfamiliar with, and if you have put anything on your cover letter, make sure you know that particular thing. Now following this, there is one more paragraph, and here you can mention the different prizes, funding and other things which you have obtained, and this should be a very short paragraph for most people, but you can mention if you have won some graduate school fellowship, or you got some best paper prize or something like that. Now if you are a more senior faculty, this thing can become more important, so you can mention certain fellowships which you have obtained. You may have got professional body fellowships, you may have got some prizes and so on. So I remember there was one case, maybe it is more of a rumor than a real case, where a professor had applied from the Soviet Union to the United States, and he simply mentioned in his cover letter that he had obtained the Nobel Prize in physics and then a few more things, and this was sufficient. So again, this is rather an extreme case, but this can also happen to some people. So once you have listed out these particular prizes, awards and so on, then you come to your last paragraph, and here you essentially close this letter. You can mention that you may be visiting somewhere close to the university, if that is so. So sometime I have seen people mentioning that they are going to a certain conference near the university, and then the university has actually scheduled a meeting with this faculty, because it's much cheaper to then invite this person if he is in a nearby locale. You can give your contact details such as Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Messenger, mobile number and so on. So generally your Skype name and your phone number should be sufficient, because people can then contact you through various forums. And then you may also want to give an email which is not necessarily linked to your institution, which is a private mail such as a Gmail or a Hotmail account. And this would ensure that they can contact you in case you have left your institution and gone to a different institution, which may be the case if you are a PhD student going on to do a postdoc. So once you have written this out, then you finish this letter, you write sincerely, sign off with your name, and then you are done with this letter. So once again, to review, in one page you have to essentially communicate to this chair of the selection committee that what is the job you have applied for, what are the credentials you bring to the job, what is the demonstrated expertise you have in research which can help in fructifying some of the parameters which they have laid out for the job, what are some possible teaching duties which you can do to help the university or the institution, because remember that for most UG institutes, teaching is the necessary condition. So very often faculty are hired for teaching, and then they are allowed to do research on whatever they want, and finally they are judged on research. So it is kind of a weird process, but that's the way it takes place. So in many cases, if you are teaching courses and the courses you have jotted down matches with a particular need in the department because of the retirement of a faculty or because of the leaving of a faculty, then it would be very good. Similarly, if you have put courses which are not taught at the institution currently, but which they would like to be taught, that is very good. So maybe it is in some of the new areas such as 3D manufacturing or digital twins or something like that. So again, do not be shy of putting courses which are not yet there in the curriculum. Sometimes that is better, because they always have fallback faculty and senior faculty to teach the basic courses in many departments, but they would like to bring in some of the new courses into the department. Once again, the fact that you are doing a kind of feature extraction from your resume here also brings into importance the role played by different prizes and so on. So again, this is something which is very important in university settings, is that people look for something which shows the candidate is outstanding, exceptional and brilliant. So in any way you can make this happen beyond just writing journal papers, it's better for you. So any kind of postdoctoral work where you have got a named fellowship such as a Humboldt or a Fulbright will also aid your case here. So these are some of the aspects I had for you today. And again, remember to make this letter in 12-point font. Use something like Times New Roman or Calibri. Remember, the search committee people are quite old and therefore may not be able to see small font. So don't push 10-point font on them, because probably they'll throw the letter straight into the garbage. Calibri font is good for online reading, and most of the letters and all are being read online nowadays, so 12-point Calibri is good. And make sure you do not make any grammatical mistakes and especially any spelling mistakes, because if you are writing a one-page document and making grammar and spelling mistakes in these documents, this will cast a lot of aspersion about your capability as a researcher, because for researchers writing is the bread and butter, and you are supposed to write papers, thesis, books and so on, and then therefore you should not make any mistakes in these documents. So you need to be very meticulous in framing this particular document. So I would say that the cover letter is the document which will get the other documents read. If people do not like your cover letter, your resume, research statement, teaching statement and diversity statement may never see the light of the day. So I hope you benefit from this video. Please stay tuned to my channel for more such videos. Thank you very much.